Here we have a beautiful chunky cut sirloin steak. Everything that's good about beef is right here on this plate. Beautiful marbling running through it. A lovely covering of fat. This is off a native breed cattle and we've matured that now for 35 days before boning it out and cutting it. One of the most important things when cooking a steak is to make sure you take it out the fridge a good 20 minutes, I'd say, to come up to room temperature. If you cook it straight from cold, it can lead to the fibres constricting and may lead to some toughness. So it's important that you go through that stage. Obviously opinions vary on how to cook a steak. I'm just going to show you my method that's tried and tested. I think what most people do agree on though is do not grill your steak. What you want to do is to get that caramelization on the outside, which if you put it under a grill, very few domestic grills at least have got the heat power to do that. The steak will kind of boil gently and won't be ideal. So let's start with getting our pan nice and hot. I'm using a nice heavy duty non-stick Le Creuset pan here, but you can use any pan that you're comfortable with really. The first thing to do is to season the meat. So here I've got some Cornish sea salt. There's so many good sea salts now on the market, but I use this one in particular. We sell it in our deli in Leamington Spa and I'm a big fan of it. And it always looks quite alarming to most people how much salt you're going to put on, but you've got to remember that when you put it in the pan, a lot of this salt's going to come off anyway. Take care to season it all the way around, as so. And then a few grinds of pepper. I'm going to add some more pepper on at the end and just do that on each side. Make sure your pan's nice and hot. You don't want your gas ring too high once the pan is actually hot. I just turn it down to about here. And although it's non-stick, I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil at this stage, just because that gives it more of a caramelization as the olive oil and the steak connect. So just a tiny bit in here. Now, crispy fat is wonderful on steak. It's my favorite part. And also, it's got a load of flavor in there as well. So I'm going to start the sirloin steak by cooking it like this, okay? So the fat side is down in the pan like this, and there's no need to press it too much, just get it started. And that is going to crisp up. And at the same time that it crisps up, that fat is going to go into the pan and recycle that flavour all of the time to make that steak wonderful and flavoursome. So I'm just going to leave that until that part's completely brown. Now, once that fat's nice and brown on that side, because this is quite thick, I'm just going to let the other side of that just brown a little as well. That won't need quite so long. We just want to colour that underside as well, just for about 30-40 seconds really. Once that side's done, turn the steak over in the pan. At this point, with that lovely bit of beef fat, I'm just going to pour some over the top and make sure it goes underneath, because what we want is that beef fat now to react with that salt and create a beautiful crust on the outside. I'm not going to go into too much detail today about how long to cook your steaks. There's plenty of information on our website about that. But with a steak about that thick, which in old money is about a 10-ounce steak, I'd want to leave it about 2.5 minutes before turning. Don't be tempted to prod and poke your steak like someone at a barbecue. You know, Uncle Fred that never cooks in his life and he's constantly prodding the sausages and turning the steak. Just leave it to do its thing. It doesn't need any interference at this time, just a little bit of time to get those deep, beefy, caramelised notes. After a couple of minutes, just have a little peek underneath, and there we are, you see. Turn it over. You can see you've got some wonderful caramelisation on the outside. That crust that we're looking for has formed, and the fat is wonderfully and crispy. That's going to be delicious. Now, I'd normally leave this then just for another further minute, just to brown that side slightly in those wonderful beef juices. Once that's started to brown underneath, what I add then is a good tablespoon of butter. Now, this is going to add bags of flavour, a richness, is really going to complement those beefy flavours. When the butter's melted, we're going to baste it and spoon it over the top. I like to add my butter after you cook the second side, because I find that butter, if it's added too early, can add those burnt flavours that we don't really want. So what I'm going to start doing now is just basting that butter over the top. This is going to be fantastic with those beefy notes from the fat that we've cooked down with, that salt and pepper all combining. I'm going to cook it probably for a further minute on that side really. All you need to do at this point is just periodically keep spooning that butter over the top. And this is how I was taught to cook steak in French kitchens, French restaurants. And, you know, to my mind, there's two ways to cook a steak. Either like this or on a barbecue over real natural coal. So that steak's been wonderfully basted in butter, cooked on all of the sides. We haven't turned or interfered with it too much. We've just let the natural process take its course. Now, a lot of people talk about resting the meat on a rack or something like that. I'm not really too bothered about that. I think take a nice warm plate to rest it and just have another look underneath. That's beautiful and ready. So I'm just going to take that off now and leave it to rest. The resting period is really important. It is as important as the cooking in my view. You need to rest a steak like that for at least 6 or 7 minutes. What happens during that time is the fibers of the muscles relax. The juices that we've got here that I'm going to continue to baste it with as it cools down are absorbed into the meat, and we're making sure that that steak is not just really tender but beautifully flavoursome as well. So just going to spoon some of this over the top like so, and then I'm just going to leave it. As simple as that. So this steak's now been resting for about 7 minutes and it's ready to carve. So I'm just going to put it on here. It's important to use the right knife as well. I like to use a straight edge knife rather than a serrated knife, so you don't tear the meat. And let's just have a little look at that. There we are. Nice and medium rare for you.